Hi, everyone. Thanks to all of the UXR Circle organizers for inviting me here today. Whoops. So my name is Leia. I'm a senior market researcher at Shopify. I work from the Ottawa office. A little over 2 years ago, I started working on Shopify on a research team that was in close collaboration with Shopify's newly formed international team. So we started our international team like a little bit over 2 years ago. And when I came to Shopify, I started as a cultural anthropologist. And until then, my primary research focus was on Japan. And my primary research focus was qualitative field research. So needless to say, it was a really big shift for me to move into a tech company that is rapidly expanding around the world. Today I work on the Shopify's Market Insights team. It's an interdisciplinary market research team with both qualitative and quantitative market researchers. And we take research requests from both the product teams and the service lines. Product teams are focused on a specific part of the product, and the service lines touch all different parts of Shopify. And we determine our research methodologies based on research questions and business objectives. So working at Shopify and on the Market Insights team has really challenged me to redefine how to conduct research cross-culturally, mainly because I've had the chance to experiment with doing multi-methods approaches and collaborating with people across disciplines. So today I'm going to walk you through some of the learnings that I've had at Shopify through conducting cross-cultural research and using multi-methods approaches. So I'll start off by explaining what cross-cultural research is for those who are not familiar, going through some of the different methodologies that exist for cross-cultural research, some ways to develop an approach. So I'll go through a couple case studies, then some tips for bringing cross-cultural research to your organization if it doesn't exist yet. So what is cross-cultural research? Cross-cultural research are studies in which researchers try to figure out whether the behaviors, beliefs, and practices, etc., transcend cultural boundaries or differ from culture to culture. For Shopify, we're trying to figure out whether the way that business owners, and staff, etc., work differs across culture to culture so that we can adapt our product and marketing strategy accordingly. And conducting cross-cultural research can require navigating a lot of cultural differences, a lot of logistics, time zones, and a lot of other barriers on the road to success. So I find what's really helpful to succeed in this is having a really solid methodological framework that is built upon research and business objectives. And that way you can really work to get buy-in from stakeholders. So if your business and research objectives are clear, they'll help you to define your research methodology and also get buy-in from stakeholders. For those who are not familiar, a business objective is a specific and measurable company or organizational related goal that the research will impact. And a research objective is a specific goal that will help to direct and focus a project that will tie back to the business objective. So an example of a business objective is help the marketing team to increase customer acquisition in Canada. And a research objective is uncover and understand the expectations that small business owners in Canada have towards e-commerce platforms. So if we're able to better understand the expectations that small business owners have in Canada, then we can adapt our product accordingly, and hopefully that will lead to higher customer acquisition. So once we have an idea of our research objectives and business objectives, we can move into research methodologies. For cross-cultural research, there's both qualitative and quantitative methods, so I'll walk through some of them. One of the main ones is in-depth interviews, which we use quite a lot at Shopify. They can be done remotely or in person. They're intensive individual interviews, mainly used for exploratory research, getting the context of a problem, evaluating solutions, generating knowledge. They're really good for uncovering descriptive data about behaviors, attitudes, and perceptions, and they can also be used to inform quant. So you can do qualitative interviews first and then follow up with a quantitative survey, for example. Some cons about them is that they're a little bit time consuming. They require a trained interviewer, so if the person hasn't been trained in interviewing, it can introduce bias to the study. And also, they're a small sample size, so it's a little bit difficult to generalize. So that's why it's good to have a survey afterwards if you have that opportunity. Next is the competitive analysis, which is more of a quantitative method. This is a methodology geared towards determining the strengths and weaknesses of the competitors within your market. So it's really good for determining product differentiators, so what makes your company or product better than another company or worse. Marketplace gaps, as well as strategies for competitive advantage. However, there's some risk of it being incomplete or based on incorrect data, so if you don't include all of the players, that could bias your competitive analysis, and also it's quite time consuming. And then a third one is market segmentation. This is a process of dividing audiences into smaller groups that share the same characteristics to optimize for product and marketing development. So it's really good for improving the effectiveness of advertising campaigns, for informing product development, and for identifying new audiences. So if you wanted to look across a bunch of different countries and you wanted to find the similarities between your target audience within all those countries, you could do something like a market segmentation study. Some of the risks for market segmentation is that you could use a too small sample size, which would render your segments inadequate. And you can also potentially identify segments that don't lead to conversion, if that's what your goal is. Some more. Diary study is a method that's used a lot for folks that are not able to go to another location physically, where you collect qualitative data about user behaviors, activities, and experiences over time. The data is often reported longitudinally, and it's self-reported. So the participants could be writing entries every day, taking photos, taking videos, and then sending that back to the researcher. Whoops. It's good for gathering data over long periods of time and recording experiences in natural environments. However, you can risk lacking accuracy because you can't actually see the participants, and you're unable to observe the participants directly. So you might have to take the results with a grain of salt versus actually being there with the participants. Content analysis is another low-cost approach that you can do. This is where you're analyzing different recorded communications, such as transcripts, observations, documents, statistical records, etc., for patterns. So it's really effective, and it's low cost. It's unobtrusive, because you're not actually interacting with participants. Low cost, like I said, and it's reliable, because you're working with peer-reviewed sources a lot of the time, so it's good data. However, the content could be removed from context, which can lead to misconstruing the data, and there can be information gaps. And then the last one I'll share with you is a focus group that is used a lot in market research. You'll have a small gathering of participants in an interactive setting where they discuss a particular topic, and there will be a moderator kind of moderating the conversation. So this is used a lot for if people don't have the time to do one-on-one interviews, they can do a focus group, and that way they can get multiple interviews done at once. It's good for idea generation. The participants can actually bounce ideas off of one another and get deeper into the conversation. However, it's expensive. It can lead to groupthink, which means one person says, I think this, and then everybody else says, I think this, even though they might not necessarily think that. So that's one of the risks, and it's also really time-consuming. So choosing an approach. For this, I'm going to show you a couple of case studies of work that I've done. The first example I've called Research in Oswania. The real country name has been removed because Yeah. This is an example of a project with a long timeline and a large budget. I'm also going to show you an example of a project with a short timeline and short budget, or a small budget. So you can get an idea of like some of the diversity of techniques that you can use. So whenever we choose an approach, first we think about the team. So should our team be taking on this research, and what research has already been done within our company? After we figure that out, we think about our ideal methodology. So if we had all the budget and time in the world, what would we do? Then we had to fit that within the budget. We had to fit that within the timelines. And then we'll end up with our actual methodology. So the research question for this project was, how can we acquire more customers in Oswania? The business objective was to increase acquisition of customers in Oswania, and the research objective was to identify barriers and challenges to starting and running a business in Oswania. So we started off with the team. We thought, has there been any research done about this audience before at Shopify? So we started looking into it, and we asked the support teams, user research teams, data science teams to see what did they know about this audience so far. We found out they didn't really know much, so there was a research opportunity. Next, we had to consider what team does it make sense to take this research on. At Shopify, we're lucky to have a lot of diverse groups of research, so we could think about what team it made sense. The way that we focus which team it makes sense to take the project on is by looking at the research question. So this research question is, how can we acquire more customers in Oswania? Since it's around customer acquisition, we thought that it made sense for the market research team to take it on. Next, we thought about our ideal methodology. So our research objective is identify barriers and challenges to starting and running a business in Oswania. For this project, we thought it made sense to do a 3-tiered approach. That was our ideal. So we proposed to our stakeholders. First, we would do secondary research. This would help us to find out the known challenges for Oswanian businesses, their use of e-commerce or lack thereof, as well as future research opportunities. Next, we would do in-depth, in-context interviews. So we planned to interview business owners currently not on Shopify within their place of business in order to better understand their challenges firsthand, as well as opportunities for Shopify to address those challenges. And then finally, after we finished the qualitative field research portion of the project, we would do a large-scale survey where we would field the survey to non-Shopify business owners across Oswania in order to quantify the qualitative findings over a larger region so that we were able to get both that qualitative and quantitative side. Next, we had to fit that into the budget. So we thought for secondary research, it's not so bad. We just need to access Statista, which is a software that has a lot of industry statistics. You can get a lot of stuff for free, as well as other secondary resources. For in-depth, in-context interviews, actually quite a lot more. So we would need budget for plane tickets, meals, accommodations, recruitment, interview incentives, translations, and transcriptions, so quite a lot. And then for the large-scale survey, we would also need a lot of budget for recruitment, interview incentives, data tables, and access to survey software. So we knew we needed a lot of budget, and one way that we were able to seek buy-in from stakeholders was by building out a chart saying this is exactly what we think the budget will be for this project. So I removed all the information, but myself and another researcher went on this trip. So you could see we broke it down by the transportation, meals, accommodation, cost of pocket Wi-Fi, et cetera. And that way we were able to tell stakeholders this is what we think the approximate cost for the field research will be. We also did this for the quantitative survey. So for this project, we wanted to use an external vendor in order to recruit and field the survey. So what we did was we compared a bunch of different agencies, and we made this spreadsheet where we had the first agency, second agency, et cetera, the time that we contacted them, whether they said, yes, we're good to do a RFP or a request for proposal or not. whether they offered recruitment for the qualitative phase, because we wanted to recruit for qual, as well as for the quantitative phase, and then whether we thought they were a good fit for the project or not. In this case, we thought agency number 1 was a good fit. This was really good for buy-in for stakeholders because we were able to show them this is the cost across all of the different agencies, and this is our reasoning for choosing this agency for the project. We also outlined our timelines, or our approximate timelines, for both the field research and the online survey part of the project. So you can see that the field research starts in August, and the online survey starts in October. We wanted to be able to include some of the qualitative research findings before, so that we would be able to use those insights in order to inform our quantitative survey. But you can see there's not too much of a gap, and we actually had to continue doing the qualitative analysis while we were constructing the survey, and that was because of timeline restraints, unfortunately. But we were able to take the high-level parts of the qual to inform the quantitative research, and then we delivered the final report on the same week. So that was one way that we had to compromise. We weren't able to complete our qualitative analysis before we started the quant. So for this project, the reason that we were able to receive buy-in was because the research was in a really high priority area. However, that put pressure on us to deliver the research results faster. So we had to compromise by using high-level qualitative results to form the quantitative questionnaire. So it wasn't ideal, but you do what you have to do. And for the methodology, and this is the actual methodology we did, we were able to do majority of what we wanted. We started with the secondary research. For the in-depth, in-context interviews, it was too expensive for us to use an agency for qual. So we ended up doing snowball sampling, which is where you reach out to your contacts, and then they reach out to their contacts, and they reach out to their contacts. So it's a little bit scrappy, but it's what we had to do. And then for the survey, also we had to go off from the high-level results of the qual in order to inform the quant. So we had to make a few compromises, but we were able to do what we wanted to do, more or less. I found that this project really benefited from using a multi-methods and interdisciplinary approach of using different resources. So we combined information from both internal resources like data science and support, as well as external resources like secondary, like the census from Australia, etc. And then also, by having a thorough plan and methodological framework, we were able to get the buy-in from stakeholders for the project. So that was pretty good. So next I'm going to show you a different example. So this is for a project with a short timeline with a limited budget. I've taken out the real name of the country, so this is called DESCA for this case. So again, choosing an approach, our research question was, what is the market opportunity for Shopify in DESCA? And our business objective, it's a little long, so bear with me, help the marketing team develop their strategic roadmap for DESCA by using available data to size Shopify's market opportunity and determine product market fit. So we basically wanted to size the opportunity for Shopify with this audience in DESCA. And our research objective was to size the current market opportunity for Shopify in DESCA, as well as our current product market fit. So again, for team, first we reached out. We wanted to know what do we know so far about this audience. Reached out to support, user research, data science. Same thing, we didn't have very much information about this audience. We thought again, what team does it make sense to take this project on? Looked at the research question, what is the market opportunity for Shopify and DESCA? Since the question was around market opportunity, we thought that it made sense for market research to take it on. So for the ideal methodology, the research objective is size the current potential market opportunity for Shopify and DESCA, as well as our current product market fit. We thought that secondary research made sense, and this is a quote from our research plan. So we said, in order to address the research objectives, we plan to conduct secondary or desk research. There's a low-cost approach that will allow us to determine if additional market research is needed. For this project, we didn't have very much budget, so because we were not yet aware of the market opportunity for Desca, and Desca wasn't a priority market for Shopify, we didn't have much budget for the project compared to Oswania. Stakeholders wanted decisions quickly, and we had a limited amount of time. So we determined that conducting secondary research made the most sense for this project. Even though we thought that secondary research made sense, we still made our budget and timeline. The budget is a lot shorter than the other projects. We didn't think that we would require any budget. However, we still put the caveat that there might be certain articles with paywalls that we would have to pay for. And then for the timeline, you can see that it's only 3 weeks compared to the field research, which was about 5 months. So a lot shorter, a lot lower cost. And we were able to do this methodology. So this is from after we finished the project. So through the secondary research, we were able to better understand the customer group and inform primary research efforts that were taken on by another team afterwards. And the research findings were able to cover market size, demographics, key behaviors, and main players in the market. So we were actually able to get pretty far of the way there just through doing secondary research. Secondary research allowed us to gain a much better understanding of the audience, and through triangulating the data, we were even able to calculate an approximate total addressable market. So you can do a lot with secondary research. And based on the results of the study, we were able to work closely with stakeholders to determine next steps. So next I want to give some tips for folks that do not have cross-cultural research at their organization yet, or who are starting to have it at their organization. So if you think it makes sense to conduct cross-cultural research for a particular project, I suggest that you build a robust methodology outlining your reasoning behind conducting the project, so why you think this is important, internal work done around the subject area, so if there's been any work done about it before, as well as your proposed budgets and timelines. And if you have the chance, I think it's great to have a comparison of different options. So if you can compare this methodology would have this cost and this timeline versus this one, that will make things more clear for your stakeholders. So for internal work around subject area, even if the research team hasn't done too much work around that region, there's a lot of other people that you could reach out to as well. So, for example, the talent team might have recruited people from that region, so they might have some information for you. The data science team might have organic traffic from a particular area that might be interesting for you. User research team, of course, depending on how big your organization is. Some of the teams might have already done research on that area that you're not aware of. Market research might have sized the opportunity for your company within that market, and they might also be able to provide you with some reports or some leads to reports. The customer support team might have a lot of insights as well, since they're working with customers all the time. So they might actually be able to tell you, oh yeah, I've received some tickets from X region. And then if you have Slack or the equivalent at your company, there might be like a channel related to that country that you could start off at. I also suggest that you become familiar with different research methodologies, their cost, benefits, and timelines. And this is a scrappy graph that I put together. So you can see the cost of the method going from low to high, and the length of the timeline for the method going from short to long. So something like a content analysis or a case study, it's relatively cheap, and it has a shorter timeline, whereas something like market segmentation, it can be really expensive and take a really long time to finish. So if you have a good understanding of that, it will help you, and you can put all those things in your toolkit. I would also suggest being more aware of the external resources available to you. These are all resources that I use all the time in my work. eMarketer and Statista have a lot of really good industry reports, and a lot of the information you can access for free, so definitely check them out. Google Scholar also has a lot of peer-reviewed articles that are really helpful, and you can also check out the government websites for whatever region you're looking into. I have Stats Canada up there for an example, but you can also look at census or, I use government documents from the governments all the time. It's super helpful. And then if your company isn't working cross-culturally right now, you can consider challenging your team to imagine how their product would work in another country. So when you're starting a new project, you can ask questions like, how would this product work in another language? How would the pricing of our product map to another currency? What product gaps might appear if we brought this product to another country? And how do our competitors differ from country to country? Because you might not have the same competitors in one country to another. So by doing this, you can get people to start stretching and thinking about, if we were to move to another country, this is how it might look. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question or two for Leia while I have you? Sorry to put you on the spot. Yes.
They were two different research projects. Yeah, can you repeat the question, please?
Or sorry.
Or no?
I'm going to bring you a microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Wow. Hello. So my question was like for the first research, you start with in-depth, and after that you finish with one which was more like a survey. Why you didn't do the reverse?
Oh, do you mean like doing the interviews first and then the survey?
Yes.
Yeah, so I did the secondary research first to get an idea of the information that already existed and like research gaps or opportunities. Then I went out to the country and went to 3 different cities and interviewed people to find out more about those gaps. And then after we have all those insights, they're only from like 20 people, so that's not quantifiable. So we did the survey afterwards so that we were able to say, okay, this percentage of people say this. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
No worries.
Are there specific pitfalls that you found that you have to be mindful for when you're going in a market that you're not aware of? Because some of the methodologies would be kind of the same you would use in Canada, but then do you need maybe somebody locally to tell you who to pick, how to ask the questions? So where can you get kind of lost in translation when you reapply those methods elsewhere?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For the places that I did field research, that for countries that I don't speak the language, I brought somebody from that country with me because they have that local market knowledge as well as a language knowledge. So that helped a lot. In some other cases, I've actually used a third-party agency. So there was one project where I started off doing secondary research. We started doing research in-house, but we realized we don't know enough about this market. So we actually used an agency that was in that market that had that knowledge that we didn't have. So I guess it depends on the project. If you have somebody from that country that can help you, I think that's really helpful.
Did it change your goals?
No, because I had planned for for example, for the Oswania project, my colleague was actually from that country, and she was a researcher as well. So we just collaborated through the whole project, so it was fine. For working with an agency, yeah, it definitely changes things because their methodology will be different. It's a different budget, different timeline, and the way that you work will be a lot different than doing primary research because you're kind of being like a project manager, I guess. So it's a really different role. Yeah, no worries.
Any other questions? There we go. Yes. Oh, thanks.
I just wanted to understand, after doing all your research, what was the main output for, I guess, the project to continue or to make a decision to, I'm not sure at the business level what happened in terms of when you concluded your research, but I just wanted to know what was, I guess, the main output you made to try to convince the business to keep going on with that initiative.
Yeah, I think stakeholder management is super key. So that's why at the beginning I like try to loop them in with all those things. The other thing I do is sometimes interim reports. So after I get back from like going on the field, I'll make a high-level report of these are the key insights, and I'll present that to them. There's also been points where like I've had like multiple meetings just aligning people on the research objectives, so I know that this is exactly what they want, because sometimes stakeholders don't know what they want. So having those meetings, I think, is really helpful. And then, yeah, afterwards, like working directly with the team is really helpful. There was one project where after I came back from the field, I actually worked really closely with a product manager on the roadmap for that country for the next year. So we were able to take all of the insights and put them right within his roadmap. So that was really helpful. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.